Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be playing the number one deck that has to be the number one deck in standard, being Izzet Prowess with the Cori-Steel Cutter. And this is kind of a video on why you should be playing it. I recently did a ranked video and I put this at S. Star City Games clearly agrees with that decision, as it was a 30% rated deck there, and there was a big tournament in Japan as well where it also happened to be 33%. Record numbers of decks are being put into play, being Izzet Prowess, and Cori-Steel Cutter has a lot to do with that. But why is it so good, and why should you be looking to play it on Arena? One, it has many ways to win, whether that is a slick shot that we all know is very valuable, or the Cori-Steel Cutter that we all know is valuable. But even a small creature like Swift Spear or the Stormchaser's talent Otter can chip in a ton of damage thanks to cards like Monstrous Rage. This Monstrous Rage is kind of game breaking whenever you defy how much damage you have to do. For example, with just a slick shot in play, we cast a Monstrous Rage. That slick shot is now dealing 6 damage. Oftentimes that slick shot is going to be coming in free for its plot cost. So let's say, for example, we Monstrous Rage, Opt, and Burst Lightning. Well, you start at 6 because of Monstrous Rage, you go to 8 because of Opt, and then you go to 10 plus 2 because Burst Lightning will deal more. And then we immediately do 14 damage on turn 3, almost at a minimum, and that's not implying that we even played a Swift Spear on one or a Stormchasers on one, and that is typically threatening lethal at that point. If we have a slower hand, we can then Cori-Steel Cutter after we plot the Slick Shot, and then play Slick Shot, trigger on a Cori-Steel Cutter, and let's say we opt to find extra value later, then it's just kind of tumbling downhill from there. And one of the main reasons why you should be playing it is the deck is super affordable whenever you're talking about commons, uncommons, and rares in the deck, with the most rares being from the lands for the most part. At least I think it's pretty close if you want to stack it up here. But yeah, as you can see, 4 rares, 4 rares, 4 rares, and another rare here. There's actually more rares in the mana base than there is in the deck. And let's say, all things considered, Cori-Steel Cutter gets banned. Well, if this is the card that gets banned, you get your 4 rare wild cards back, because that's the refund system that Arena has. They can easily do that, so they do, thankfully. A good system to have in place. But you get these back in your rares, and then you have still a nice solid deck. And if you just want to switch to mono red, well, looky there, you have all the pieces. You lost a couple common uncommons. That wasn't going to bother you too much. And the mana, sure, that might suck, but oftentimes having all the mana for other decks is pretty awesome, especially whenever they come back into rotation. For example, if Shocklands come back, having those for your decks will be pretty awesome as well. But with that said, we're going to hop into some games. We're going to see why this deck's so good. If you haven't for some reason seen it, or you would actually like to see more gameplay of it, we're going to be showcasing it off here in just a second. With that said, if you all enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. Truly helps out the channel a ton. And let's go game. I have the best card in my deck times 1 or 2, depending which one you think it is. And there's temp lockdown mana going to be available probably. Unless, of course, it's kind of the Omniscience combo deck, and then we'll have some things to worry about, maybe not. And held up. Weird. It didn't hold up when we did this. It held up immediately after. So let's plot. Attack. For 1, nothing going on so far. We'll struggle with Burst Lightning. And it's a Hottie combo deck. Okay. So it could have been like an op. Not combo, I guess. I don't know. Would you consider Hottie combo? Maybe. But we all know that, obviously... Oh, what a hit, dude. Yep, bring it back. Or look for it, I guess. What a hit. Because the thing about Hottie is we can just kind of swing around it, go through it, go over it, go under it, whatever we really need to do. In a lot of cases, but... Oh. We also need to go incredibly wide against this match, I think. Because the other thing is, with the Oculus, they will go wide, so... We have to kind of return that favor. I will go ahead and fire off a Burst Lightning. Because I have a lot of prowess attacking, even if Slick Shot gets picked up here, for example. Like, if we have to put it back in our hand. If we invest a Monstrous Rage, we're at risk of getting blown out. I knew the Flood Maul and a token to answer it permanently because of Cori-Steel Cutter makes sense. It's just kind of a risk. But, I mean, I guess it was the same damage across the board. The problem is something like a Slick Shot is so much more deadly than that. especially when Monstrous Rage puts it up to 6 on just one spell cast. Getting rid of what here? Okay, they're not following the trend of answering tokens, which definitely makes sense now. You're going to play the 1/3. No helping hand thus far. Hopefully that trend continues. We play out our land. We fire up the Cori-Steel Cutter. There's some hesitation here. I understand that this can get removed. I could equip, but I will gladly make 2 more creatures here regardless. Could get counterspelled. There could be another soul partition. All this is kind of resolving. We have to kind of go wide, and then we can fire off his stock up on the following build-up turn. Moment of truth. Going to be the end of the game, and we are going to attack for lethal. Unfortunately, they do not find the helping hand to bring out the Oculus. And if you saw my ranked video yesterday, I think it's a pretty good example. Obviously, it's not just Sky, but a pretty good example of why I didn't have Oculus rated quite as high as maybe some would, because you did all the steps, you put Oculus in the graveyard, but unfortunately, you were never able to bring it out, and it just did nothing. We have a Slick Shot, and we all know how good that card can be on its own. And we also have Sleight of Hand to dig. Monstrous Rage is our good payoff spell. Personally, if I think there's a ban to come, I personally think Monstrous Rage should go. And Monstrous Rage has been a problem for quite some time now. Seeing a blue-white land kind of changes my thought process here. I'm going to go with the Sleight of Hand, grab it Stormchasers. Honestly, pretty happy we did that because another land draw there would suck really bad. Well, we got it anyway, so. 1 mana available. I mean, if they bounce it, they bounce it, I guess. But, yeah. Alright. 3 Surveillance. At some point, we're either going to find out if it's blue-white or it's Omniscience, and I believe it's blue-white, seeing the Fountain Port. Don't know what else that would be. Cori-Steel. We're going to have to hold the Stormchaser's talent. We're going to have to present an extra threat. We don't want to kind of do that in the opposite way. If we play Stormchasers and it all gets absorbed under a temp lockdown, I'd much rather be able to play a second threat here. Get lost. Sure. Still get to get in for 2. Of course, we lose our Slick Shot here, but can we do 15? Seems ambitious. Seems very unlikely. Seems like a good play, though. I'm going to play Cori-Steel. Play Monstrous Rage on this one. Then we'll activate a map here. Yep. Best it elsewhere, of course. Again, if it's not a land off the top, I'm going to be much happier that it's gone. Maybe there's a bounce effect here. Elspeth Smite, Exile. Still ended up taking a lot of damage here. And this also establishes a double spell for the Cori-Steel, so if it's just a plain Jane board wipe, we have answers. If not, then it is what it is. Let's pop here. We know we have 2 spells to cast. They might not know that. Swift Spear on the top. I guess we keep, because if there's a situation of a board wipe, we'll be happy that that's there. Fire off Stormchaser. Number 1. So, weird situation here. We're going to see quite an awkward play, I think. Yeah. This is the way it'll work. So, I guess it won't matter, actually, because, no, it does matter. So now we'll equip here, and the reason for that is because this will technically have 1 more power than this, barring some removal. This is still generically a 1/1, getting a 1/1 pump from the Cori-Steel Cutter. This is now a 2/2. And you got to remember the Cori-Steel Cutter itself is providing that haste and stuff that we need. Now we're in. Thing here also is if it's just a... Plain Jane's not the correct word. But if it's not enough removal here, just buying back a Burst Lightning can get it done. On the 1. So we have Swift Spear to close out the game. We have a buyback of a Burst Lightning to close out the game, and we are just too wide, too spread, too fast. No temporary lockdown comes in, although I do think we played pretty well to get ourselves around it. And it just goes to show just having kind of that one-for-one removal is not good enough whenever it comes to how wide Cori-Steel Cutter can get you. All right, my opponent's first. I didn't record the last match, unfortunately. I literally was commentating the entire game, looked over, I wasn't recording. I haven't done that in a while, but the way I record now, it's just way more likely to happen. Do we want to slide a hand? I think so, because we can't really afford to rip another land. It will definitely take a Cori-Steel Cutter. Weirdly enough, even though I said I think, like, if I was to argue which one needs banned, I would say Monstrous Rage, but I just think it helps lower the tier value of kind of all the decks we're seeing, where I think far too often recently it's just been, at least it feels like a best of one every time you block, that you're just going to get trampled over. I mean, there is literally 3 mana 6/6s that we can't play because they can't keep up, which is kind of absurd to say. So this is Simic Bounce. But everything has to be a bounce deck now. The Stormchaser's talent's also too good. Kind of the fun little trade-off we get to do. They have no mana here, so I think establishing as many creatures as I can in the best way I can. So we're not going to go for like a Swift Spear here. We're going to go for a Stormchasers. Also allows us to get a little bit more prowess on our Slick Shot. Get a little bit more chip damage in while we can. They can obviously block if they want to, but they want to take 5 damage, go to 16. They do most likely be at roughly 18 post whatever they cast here. And the best part about Cori-Steel is obviously going incredibly wide. There's a swamp now. Okay. Abzan gain life flyer here. They already played a land, so they go to 20, but I definitely can deal 20 if it all pans out, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's going to. Okay. We play land. Have to bounce this, and then remove... I don't even... maybe remove that, I guess. Play here. Cast this. Bounce this. All the prowess going across the board. And I guess they can prevent more than 2, right? It's way more than 2 if I just Burst Lightning this out, because these will be 3. I guess not way more, but it'll be 3 instead. And then now we have the mana to upgrade this and buy back a Burst Lightning here. Hello? Yeah, I guess. You can gain more life, but now we're 5 creatures wide. Potentially going to be able to buy back a spell. This is where a stock up off the top is absolutely backbreaking, and there's just not a whole lot they could do whenever that comes down. Could be a deadly cover up too, which can exile some stuff. Reddit on them nose. Oh no, they didn't have enough. They did not have enough. Okay. Interesting. And we could buy back a Burst Light. For that thing I said about a stock up. Wow. This Cori-Steel Stormchasers. We're gonna try. 2 down to 2. Deadly cover up obviously won't carry over through our Cori-Steel Cutters. Now we either need to top deck another land. They're gonna gain quite a bit of life here. Another untapped land, so we can play the Stormchasers and then upgrade. They still have 2 mana. Oh, okay. They go up to 8. All right. Okay. I will gladly take that. Now we can kind of go about as wide as we want. We're going to take double spells here. I cast Stormchaser's talent. Both of these will now trigger. We can kind of see what we end up ripping into here. Opting for a sleight of hand. And another Stormchasers would be okay. The mountain is like fine-ish, but it doesn't really matter, I don't think. I'll just take the other spell. And obviously here you kind of want to not attack because they get a free trade, but like there's no reason not to attack because this card's so broken. But yeah, there's another one. It's just big life-gaining dragons, which is fair enough, to be honest. Big chunk of life they're gaining back. Somehow we're going to have to get through all this. And if they get the removal on their turn, or on our turn, it's not sorcery speed removal, they'll gain life. I feel like there maybe could have invested that later. And there's a Monstrous Rage, which will do a lot of damage here. So we opt to go for... the opt, I guess? Some stick there. A second Monstrous Rage. Sure. I talked about picking up the ban card earlier, so I might as well pick it up now. Or bannable card earlier. Might as well pick it up now. We're removing my thing. Alright, so that's 3. There's to some extent. They only have a blue, and I doubt it's a Flood Maw. If I cast this Monstrous Rage, I save this, and it can attack, and then I have another Monstrous Rage around, right? So I feel like that's worth it. But it's -3/-3. That feels like a free block, right? So this will give this +3. So we basically lose the +3. Well, it gives it +1 at the end, so it ends up at 3 and then ends up at 4. Or do I just Monstrous Rage both these other tokens? I don't actually know the math difference. I think I want to save this. I could be wrong about this. Could be a wrong call. Move across the board. We're in. Sure. And fortunately for us, it will actually stick around, which is awesome. Because it won't go away until like the end step will happen and it'll stay. So that does give us a free 4 to connect. It's going to be free 5 here. Maybe they changed their mind. And the 4 does tend to be relevant here because I couldn't quite, I don't know why my math wasn't like kind of ticking fast enough there. And now, fortunately for us, we get the Monstrous Rage this one. Because it'll already go to 3, all this damage is going, the extra is going to connect, and our creature will stay alive. And then they're forced to kind of board and wipe me again. And if it's a board wipe, which will obviously suck, I don't know what this does. Surveil 2. Board wipe, it'll obviously suck. But obviously we still have the Stormchaser level up multiple times to kind of get a lot of value out of our graveyard. If we want, maybe we go for a stock up. That turn, do you have enough? You're short by 1 unless you have a land to play. Could have definitely been careful of the mana, but I guess it doesn't matter when you have this. So they can definitely cover up, exile something, and then we can go for level up. You should get rid of stock up if they're going to get rid of something, I think, here in my graveyard. Maybe Monstrous Rage, but I think stock up's to take. Could maybe argue it's opt or something, but I think stock up's definitely the hardest card. Oh, they do take opt. Okay. Interesting. The reason I argue stock up, and maybe their arguments like maybe only 2 stock ups is what they play, which would make sense. But I feel like stock up is the most valuable buyback card. Like if I buy it back and I hit. Alright, well. Level up here. I have a Cori-Steel Cutter I can play, and then I could stock up if I wanted to. But also just playing Cori-Steel Burst Lightning is lethal. But I think we're all about cards right now. See what my opponent has. You can also work on buying like smaller cards here as the game turns out. 2 lands off the top. We would have been happy with those draws, that's for sure. Kind of implies maybe our opponent's hand is dead right now. Bought this back. Evasion's interesting. 4 mana and probably 10 life, if I had to guess, is what they're at. Cori-Steel. I'm gonna play every copy this game. That's my goal. Might have a counter spell here and might be looking to interact with this Cori-Steel Cutter. Okay. Weirdly enough, we actually decline here. We just play another Cori-Steel Cutter. Apparently we have every copy in our top half. A little less than our top half. It's actually a little more because we have stocked up twice. So we're 28. That's still best of 1 math right there, if I'd ever say so. And now, like, even if they were to deadly cover up and they want to pick a card at random, I guess they would take stock up now, right? But stock up into Burst Lightning will definitely get us there on terms of spreading wide for our creatures. Be a grindy one, that's for sure. And no temp lockdown or anything to really get us. Both go in the grave. The dragon might not have been bad to get, right? Because you do answer these. Maybe they're looking for the counter spell for this. Maybe that's what they're opting for. Each non-dragon creature gets -X/-X. Good game, opponent. That was a tough one for sure. Keep looks like Pixie. If I had to take a blind guess into the dark, anytime you see white-black is typically what it is. Could be a blue land coming in. Ooh, still just Orzhov, Grim Bauble. Okay. Definitely a Pixie pile, that's for sure, though. Not really any other if, ands, or buts about it that way. Could hit a Surveil land here or a Slick Shot, so obviously we're going to take hold of that Slick Shot. I play this land, and I might as well pass at this point. Hopeless Nightmare, not necessarily the biggest deal, because obviously we've just been a mountain. Do I give them a fish here? Or do I let Unholy Annex help me? I think I let Annex help me. Weirdly enough. Cards off demons of some kind, maybe. Then there is, to some extent, where I play Slick Shot and then just opt here. Looking for, like, the damage value, but then, obviously, Grim Bauble pick back up is just good. Let's just plot our Slick Shot and then pass here. Definitely a spot where a Cori-Steel is massive. Typically, they have a little bit of trouble kind of picking it up, taking it out of our hands. They just target us. Don't totally make sense. We'll get rid of a land. A little bit flooded as is, so we definitely don't mind on that front. They go for a Pixie like we thought. Now the option is, do we op here or not? This won't be big enough because, weirdly enough, they put -2/-2 on that, and that doesn't answer this with a Monstrous Rage. So there is, to some extent, where I want to use all my spells, but I can just cast them all here, so just, like, no reason, right? And I might as well maximize damage, and I could do my entire hand this turn. So that's going to be 2, 4. That's going to be 8 plus an additional. It's going to be a lot of damage. Not entirely sure how much, but enough. Let's do blue. Let's cast ours. We should probably cast Op first, right? See what we find. Another land. We'll bend that. Another Flood Maul is actually pretty huge. It might also just block, and we might not have to use this Flood Maul. So we might end up having to use it to protect our thing. And it's definitely not going to be enough for lethal, so it's like whatever, right? So we'll make a backup creature here. We'll now move to combat. We'll attack. At any point, we can Flood Maul. Also, saving our Flood Maul gives us extra kind of leverage if they use discard effects. This is what I'm talking about with Monstrous Rage. It's just so damn annoying. It's +2 that puts them to 4. But I think I stick with my game plan. We would have bounced the Pixie. The trample would have allowed us to still hit them for full value. So it would have got +2 more, plus the 2 toughness from the Pixie would be gone. But I think making it where Grim Bauble doesn't answer our Slick Shot is just good. Sure. Second Grim Bauble. So now you're going to get to see... it's return to a creature an opponent controls. Tough, yeah, that's right. Can't necessarily do anything about that. Sure. Get a little more damage for us, boss. This is also one of the downsides of Flood Maul, is like the inherent lost value here, right? And anything good in there is just Oh, Monstrous Rage is fantastic, but I don't think we could tank that. I think at this point, the Spell Pierce is almost more important. Because they are missing land drops. So the counter unless they pay 2 is pretty huge. We hope they go for the one card, I guess. United Battlefront. There's a Kieran. Sure. You can still Spell Pierce whatever they target here. Or whatever they return here. Now with Kieran, we actually have responsible removal. We can hold priority and double cast these Flood Mauls if it's going to be enough for lethal, depending what we draw. And they go to 3, so it will be. So we can find lethal in a weird spot like this. I mean, I could always buy back Monstrous Rage as well and go that route, but I think we're going to do the interesting play here. Cast this, submit 1. Auto pay the 1. Cast this, submit 1. Auto pay the 1. We get blown out, but it feels pretty reasonable, and we actually find lethal. Very cool. Finally, I'm allowed to go first in one of my games. I've been on the draw I think 6-ish games in a row, maybe. Sure about that math. I don't know. I'm playing Prowess. I don't do math very well. But here we go. I never really know if I'm supposed to wait on Stormchasers because I feel like the damage number ends up being the same, but one sits there for longer, I guess. Because now the Prowess will come up, it'll be 3 damage. If I had this down, actually, I think you're supposed to do it the opposite way. Yeah, that math be mathing, that's for sure. Because now I could cast the Sleight of Hand or the Slick Shot, or not Slick Shot, the Swift Spear, and then Burst Lightning my opponent. But I think I'm going to get a little bit more value here. I do have a draw to find next turn, and then another Burst Lightning, and maybe a Flood Maul will be fine. But blue-white, most likely Omniscience, if I had to guess what my opponent's on. Just running it up. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a no more loss. Allow that to resolve. Grab a Cori-Steel Cutter, even though realistically it's not going to come up here. Attack. If I invest or not? I think so. Probably relying on me to invest, but I'm not going to invest in Monstrous Rage. Alright, so it is Omniscience. It could still have the bounce spell, just might feel that it's more valuable to cast a Moment of Truth. I mean, I guess it could also be Haughty Djinn, but now they're down to 6, and we definitely have the lethal. There's temporary lockdown. It's close. It's so close here. We just play Cori-Steel Cutter, and then we pass, and then we have it on the back end here, especially if they tap out. Because we can Flood Maul, which will count as spell number 1, and give them a fish, which is fine, and then we can Monstrous Rage. The Swift Spear, which then both my creatures will have trample, especially if there's a tap land here. Unfortunately, there's not, but this unlocks our whole hand, so now it doesn't matter. It's a tap fish. I would like these back, please. And then we'll cast a Monstrous Rage here. And we get there. Very cool. So this is why you play Flood Maul. Get temporary lockdowns off the board, so... For that, we move on. Alright, well, we have the El Clasico. Deal 4 damage to ourselves to cast our spells, so sure. It always sucks to play a ping land whenever you know Spire Bluff can now exist in your deck. Oh. It is what it is. I miss slow lands, to be honest. Oh, we have Just Sky. Sure. Most likely, much rather them commit here. And I will play the Shivan Reef as well, I think. Oh no, I'm probably gonna look to op here. Don't really care how big that one creature gets, I guess. You can get too much larger. We'll pass on that now. We find a Slick Shot, which is definitely a better pickup over the 2. So now all we have to avoid is them just putting an Oculus in the graveyard somehow with the Surveil land and then handing it back out. We know it's definitely possible. Just Sky Oculus has a very good track record of doing that. At least I assume it's Just Sky. Yeah. There is the information validated. Okay. Siren. Unfortunately for them, not exactly having a way to discard. But Slick Shot's going to be relevant now. It's going to put enough pressure. It's probably going to feel a need to block. If I had to guess. I think that's why they're deciding whether or not they attack here. Slick Shot will come down. We'll only have one Burst Lightning available. Thanks to kind of our mana situation. I didn't really go for the Reef because when you see this, you never really know how quick they're going to make one creature grow to get you out of the game. And I thought opting maybe a little bit more important, which it did prove to be so. Where we got to put like a Burst Lightning on the bottom, even though the card's good. I like the Slick Shot play on this. Our opponent's in the tank, so we'll kind of skip ahead here to whenever they come back. All right, I think it's upsetty spaghetti scoopy whoopy time. So cool. Had a lot of pressure on board, realistically, being able to discard anything, and they took last turn off, so I don't know. It's what it is. We'll move on. Opponent goes first. Very cool. We will keep. Everything's looking good here. I think we're obviously going to start off with the talent. Ready to go. Start off with discarding what? Our basic mountain, I guess? Suppose so. Stock up, of course, to draw us as we go down from our third land, which sucks. But having this one creature can oftentimes mean everything. Maybe there's a momentum break here, which will isolate this, but not our hand. Oh, a Kieran, maybe. Interesting. Could find a Surveil land here. Also play this just to make sure my card's safe. Let a hand. If it's a Kieran, pick it up. Ooh. Slick Shot or the land? I think it's the land because we have stock up. I know how literally insane that sounds, but when you're dealing with a hopeless nightmare deck, you kind of always want to make sure that you're getting your value when you can. We'll pass here. There's the Kieran, which makes total sense to me. Don't think we're going to have to necessarily answer the Kieran. I think we'll be able to Monstrous Rage over it later, so we don't want to invest our removal spell on it quite yet. But we could see in a moment's time. What does this hopeless nightmare make me get rid of? Opt, maybe? Momentum break. Okay. So if this is the only card to cast this turn, I will then shoot down the Kieran. It feels necessary. I'll take the 2 first, I think, because I don't want... The last thing I want is something else to kind of come out of this turn. Oh, nothing. Okay. We'll take this out now. And they're low on lands. Now we can play this kind of island here. Slam the stock up. Grab a Cori-Steel, which they oftentimes have a very hard time removing. And then we can go into maybe another threat like the Slick Shot, because we will have 4 mana next turn, so I might as well buy into that. And obviously, Cori-Steel Cutter, if a momentum breaks pick back up, is always a card we can get rid of. But our opponent misses a land after stocking up, and they give up on the game. I was going to say last one, but I guess we can try to just hit plat 1 real quick and run one more. Opponent's first. Going to be fighting uphill, I think, the whole time, especially with this little bit of burn. I just get... out Prowess, blue, black. Okay, maybe Duress? No, Siren. Sure. Interesting case here. I think we play land, and honestly, I'm down to just pass and Burst Lightning the Siren whenever they try to activate this map. If they try to activate the map, could play a more valuable creature here, but I will try to Burst Lightning this. Very Mastermind, not a card I have to worry about anymore, which is pretty awesome to say overall. I mean, as a happy camper, whenever that comes around. Could be a counter spell here, which would be tough. But I'm going to force them to have it, I guess. Considering this automatically turns on next turn. Oh, okay. Maybe they have a... No, they should have a Flood Pits here if I had to guess what they have. Something like a Kaido can come up of it and nothing gets cast here. Okay. Maybe it's a Shieldred's Edict. Oh, with that land, I feel like they're much more aggressive. Oh, they're Pixie. Okay. I'm not gonna lie to you, wasn't expecting that. Play my Swiss Spear. Let's cast our good old-fashioned sleight of hand. Know where we're at. Looking for pretty much any spell here, other than Cori-Steel Cutter, unfortunately. Maybe I'm supposed to buy it. You can't trade off my Swiss Spear. You can't... They can trade that off, but how good is Cori-Steel Cutter next turn? Feel like almost good enough, but the stock up's weird. I think I'm going for Stormchasers. As much as I want to grab that other Cori-Steel Cutter, I just don't think I can. I think I'd much rather put him under the pressure right now. Like, are you willing to take 6 here, or will you just prevent 3 and they choose not to? Maybe going to attack, go for a Kaito. They just concede. Okay. That's like one of the hard gambles you take if you're relying on your top deck and you play a Fear or something. I think they could just have maybe blocked and look to absorb it and then go from there, but maybe they missed a land drop, really relying on that map, then needed a creature to kind of prevent me from hitting them for free, but then refused to block, and then a map to activate to find the land. So I don't know. There's a lot that could happen. Unsure. Obviously, we don't know what our opponent's hand is, but didn't go wide enough, and then obviously just jamming a stock up after this, most likely finding a 1-mana spell in our top 5. We'll just be able to make another creature. So yeah, cool. We'll move on to the outro. Okay, so there are a plethora of reasons, even more now, that you should be playing this over anything else if you're really wanting to climb, other than obviously some of the other stuff. We kind of did a little tier list. I hope everybody obviously enjoyed that. It seemed like the feedback was pretty good, and honestly the views on it was pretty cool, so I'm okay with that, because I've done other things where like I've evaluated cards as they come out and they just never really did that well, and it requires kind of a lot more editing. So when they don't do well, and me being like full-time employed, right, it's kind of hard to be like, okay, I need to invest all this extra time in editing, and then it ends up flopping. So it's really like kind of a heavy burden almost to an extent. Like I enjoy it, just, you know, oftentimes you wish things would be more successful, but it is what it is, and it's on me to grow. So with that said, we put this deck at the top of S tier. We said it was the best deck to be playing. I think today we kind of saw why. Even on the draw for a lot of our games, we were still able to crawl out, and even when we didn't have a Cori-Steel Cutter, we were still able to climb out of the games and win them more often than not. And then when, obviously, I think a lot of it relies on Monstrous Rage, but at the beginning, I said something about how you should be playing this deck, and we can talk about it a bit more here. But I think the reason you should be hopping onto the bandwagon, or definitely looking to build to beat this, is the kind of cost to get into the deck is not that high. If you're talking about what some of the other decks do, that's oftentimes why Pixie's always been seen as valuable. But let's say, based on play percentage typically that we've seen from Star City, and then a tournament in Japan was roughly the same percentage, I think 30% or up, typically a ban starts to be mumbled and rumbled around, right? Because obviously the deck's very strong, it's really consistent, and playing against the same stuff all the time is really annoying, and then it makes it even worse. But let's say they ban a couple of things, right? If they ban Monstrous Rage, which I'm to an extent kind of excited about, I think that opens up a lot of your other chunky decks, if you want to call them that. Like, how dinos and stuff isn't playable with the 3-mana 6/6s and things like that because this stupid card exists. Because every time you block, somehow they still do damage to you with like a Heartfire hero and stuff, and even if you block, you still get punished, so it doesn't matter how big your creature is. So that's kind of why I advocate for this, because again, that creature always having trample doesn't allow you to actually kind of use one of the most fundamental parts of the game, where you don't block because you're afraid of getting blown out by this card, but if you don't block, you just get hit with a burst lightning, and then they blow you out with this card next turn. But so I was kind of on board with this. But let's say, worst case scenario, they ban the Cori-Steel Cutter. Oh no, the deck's dead. Well, the way that arena bans happen is you get your rares back for the most part. I don't think there's been a situation where they haven't, outside of like a random historic ban or something that nobody should have had the cards for. But Cori-Steel Cutter gets banned. You get your 4 rares back. Oh no. You have a card that is played in every other deck in the meta, and you have a card that is very good for most Prowess decks. And all your blue cards are common and uncommon, so it doesn't really matter. And stock up's obviously a house. Sleight of hand, just a couple commons. There's probably a common version. Burst Lightning's a common. Spell Piercer common. The main issue would be the lands then, but lands are typically being able to be used. So if you play Just Guy Control, for example, Spire Bluff Canal's not going to be used, but these are. If you, and like the Shivan Reef might be, or if you're playing like another Prowess deck, like the lands aren't necessarily going to be a problem. That's kind of the thing. It's like the cost of entry into this deck is really not that bad, even if you are free to play. Like, for example, if I was free to play in terms of this channel, obviously I'm not, because I use kind of what I make to pay into this so I can get every card to kind of showcase things off. If I was free to play it, this would be the very first deck I'd fire into. It's not close. I would immediately put this together and I would just run it. And if I really wanted to play best of 3, I'd look at it as well. Obviously, Nemesis is a little tough, but you run into more common and uncommons in the side, and then some more rares that could be replaced if you don't necessarily have them right away. For example, Ghost Vacuum could just be Soul Guide Lantern. The Lynx is a pretty unique card, so it can't really be replaced, but oftentimes most lists don't end up playing Screaming Nemesis anyway, so you don't even have to necessarily play those. Put the 3rd Spell Pierce in, add the 4th Torch to Tower, cut to Nemesis if you don't have the Mythics, and you're probably okay. But with that said, I've talked enough in this outro. I hope you all enjoyed the video and saw exactly why we put this at S tier in the ranking video, and why maybe you should actually give it a shot and be prepared to beat up your temporary lockdown players. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.